You intuit that 2 is greater than 1. That's not something that's ever explained to you. It's just known intuitively. It's called badiha in Arabic. You know, ta'lamuha badihatan. أن الاثنين أكبر من واحد. You know it badihatan. And badiha is a type of proof. It's a very strong proof. And the argument, I mean, a lot of modern philosophers will argue that there is no basis for intuition, that intuition, you know, the Kantian revolution, which is called the Copernican revolution in philosophy, Hume begins it. It's arguable that Descartes begins it, but Hume is taking from Locke, arguing that there's only matters of fact and relations of ideas. There's what are called tautologies, and then and tautologies are just basically the definition of a thing is reiterated in the predicate. So you say something like, you know, bachelors are unmarried men. That's a tautology. You know, it doesn't. If you understand the concept of bachelor, you understand the concept of unmarried men. You know, they're the same. They're not different. They're just different terms for the same concept. And then there's matters of fact, which, according to Hume, could only be stated about things that the 5 senses could deal with. So, you know, Zainab's taller than Layla. And so you can put them together, and indeed, Zainab is taller than Layla. Therefore, you know, it's true. So that's a matter of fact. So these are what Kant will go into synthetic and analytical propositions. It's the same basic idea. And what emerges out of that is what's called logical positivism, that nothing can really be known. Metaphysics is all hogwash. It's just garbage. Like everything that you're talking about. And this is what Dawkins and people like that, these are the philosophies that they adhere to. And these are their assumptions. Because, you know, every argument has assumptions. So if you want to understand the argument, you have to examine the assumptions of the one making the argument. And this is one of the things that logic teaches you. I'll give you an example. Darwin, one of the primary assumptions of all Darwinian thought is that it is unscientific to have a supernatural explanation of anything. That is not the assumption of Newton as a scientist. Newton found it perfectly coherent to believe in supernatural explanations. Was he scientific? For a pre-modern person, that would have been considered perfectly valid science, that God is an explanation. And it's a more logical explanation than to say this just popped into existence. But in modern scientific thought, they say, no, everything has to be explained without God. And so Darwin said, okay, if everything has to be explained without God, how do we explain the origin of species without God? How do we explain that? And so he came up with his theory of evolution, which is a micro theory because it doesn't explain the universe. And this is what Stephen Hawking is working on. He's trying to be the Darwin of cosmology. He's trying to find the natural selection. He's trying to find these mechanisms that Darwin identified in explaining the origin of species. He's trying to find them for the origin of the universe. It's the same impulse, but you have to understand his assumptions. They're atheistic. And not everybody's working from those premises. It goes back to your definitions, postulates, and common notions. What are they? Right? What's your definition of reality? These people say there's only material things. They don't believe in demons. They don't believe in angels. I don't know why. It seems there's a hell of a lot of evidence for the demons. I mean, have you seen MTV lately? Isha?